Hello students, today we are going to discuss the chapter Indigo from the book Flamingo. Indigo is written by Louis Fisher. It is an excerpt from the book written by Louis Fisher titled The Life of Mahatma Gandhi. In this chapter, Louis Fisher talks about his interview with Mahatma Gandhi. The chapter deals with the struggle and injustice faced by the peasants of Champaran and how Mr. Gandhi helped them to get rid of the clutches of the landlords. Before moving ahead with the story, let's discuss about the author first. The author of this chapter is Louis Fisher. He was born in 1896 in Philadelphia. He served as a volunteer in British Army from 1918 to 1920. He was a successful journalist. He wrote a book on Gandhi titled The Life of Mahatma Gandhi. The book has been reviewed as one of the best books on Mahatma Gandhi by the Times Educational Supplement. Now, let's talk about the main characters of this chapter. Number 1 is Mahatma Gandhi. Number 2 is Louis Fisher. He is a narrator. Number 3, Rajendra Kumar Shukla. He is a poor and illiterate peasant from Champaran. Then Rajendra Prasad. He was first president of India. Mr. J.B. Kripalani, professor of Arts College, Muzaffarpur. Mr. Malkani, government school teacher. Sir Edward Gate. He was lieutenant governor. Charles Andrew. He was a devotee of Mahatma Gandhi. Kasturba Gandhi, Mr. Gandhi's wife. And Devdas, Mr. Gandhi's youngest son. Now, let's talk about the theme of this story. The story Indigo throws light on the problem faced by the sharecroppers and Gandhiji's step to help them come out of the fear of landlords. Apart from that, Gandhiji also helped the people of Champaran to improve their socio-cultural status. The chapter talks about the sharecropping agreement. In Champaran, the land which was given to the tenants, out of that land, 15% of the total land was to be devoted to indigo plantation. And the entire indigo harvest on that specific 15% land was to be given to landlords as rent. Now, let's talk about the chapter in detail. The chapter begins with the reference given by Louis Fisher about his interview with Mahatma Gandhi in the year 1942, wherein Mr. Mahatma Gandhi talked about his decision to start a movement for the departure of British from India in 1917. The story begins in December 1916 when Mr. Gandhi went to Lucknow to attend annual convention of Indian National Congress. There he met a poor peasant named Rajkumar Shukla. Somebody must have told him to meet him in case he needs solution for his problem. Rajkumar Shukla interacted with Mahatma Gandhi and told him the injustice faced by the peasants of Champaran, and he asked Mahatma Gandhi to help them to fight the injustice. Mr. Mahatma Gandhi had never heard about Champaran before. He told Rajkumar Shukla that he has to attend a meeting in Kanpur and there are a number of other responsibilities which he has to perform. So, Rajkumar Shukla, instead of going back to Champaran, he kept on following Mr. Mahatma Gandhi. At last, Mr. Mahatma Gandhi reached his ashram in Ahmedabad. Rajkumar Shukla stayed with him in Ahmedabad in his ashram for weeks, and at last he asked Mr. Mahatma Gandhi to fix a date, the time when he will come to Champaran to solve the problem. So Mahatma Gandhi asked him that on such and such date he will go to Kolkata, from where he will go to Champaran along with Rajkumar Shukla. Months passed and the day came when Mahatma Gandhi went to Kolkata for the meeting. Mr. Rajkumar Shukla was already there. He waited for the meeting to get over. Once Mr. Gandhi came out of the meeting, he was there waiting for him. Rajkumar Shukla discussed with him the problem of Champaran. As promised by Mr. Mahatma Gandhi earlier, Mr. Gandhi agreed to go along with Rajkumar Shukla to Champaran. But instead of going directly to Champaran, Mr. Gandhi and Rajkumar Shukla boarded a train for Patna first. They went to visit Rajendra Prasad in his house in Patna. Rajendra Prasad was not there at his house at that point of time. So, after looking at Mahatma Gandhi, they thought that Mr. Gandhi may be one of the peasant. So, they asked them to sit on the ground and they didn't allow them to draw water from the well with the fear that it will become impure. After Patna, the next stop for Mr. Mahatma Gandhi and Rajkumar Shukla was Muzaffarpur. Gandhiji sent a telegraph to Professor J.B. Kriplani informing him about his arrival. He was welcomed in Muzaffarpur by Kriplani and was taken to Mr. Milkani's house, where he stayed about 2 days. The chapter also highlights that it was an extraordinary thing for the common people to give shelter to the advocates of Home Rule, and Mr. Gandhi was one of them. The news of Mr. Gandhi's arrival spread all around the area like a fire. Nobody knew who Gandhiji was, but everybody knew that somebody has come to solve their problem of struggle, to solve their problem of injustice. So, the common people from Muzaffarpur, from Champaran, came to see Mahatma Gandhi. Even the lawyers also came to the railway station to meet Mahatma Gandhi. Lawyers briefed Mr. Mahatma Gandhi about the situation in Champaran and adjoining areas. They also briefed about the injustice which is going on in this area. They also informed about the cases which they are fighting in the court, and also informed about the huge amount of money which they are charging from the peasants to fight the case. Hearing the statement given by lawyers about the hefty amount of money charged from the peasants, Gandhiji started scolding the lawyers. He said that on one hand, peasants are facing injustice from landlords. On the other side, you lawyers who belong to this area are also charging hefty amount of money from them. Gandhiji also shared his views. He said that there is no use of going to the court. According to him, first thing to be done is to get rid of the fear of British. For him, going to court will serve no purpose. It is useless. Gandhiji was also informed about the agreement and further development. He was told that whatever land the peasants are being given to till, 15% of the land was to be given for the plantation of indigo. And the entire harvest of indigo in that specific 15% need to be handed over to the landlords as a rent. Lawyer said that later on, when synthetic indigo from Germany came into the market, the British landlords came up with another contract. They said that if the peasants want to get rid of the previous contract, which means that 15% of the land to be devoted to the plantation of indigo, if they want to get rid of that previous contract, they need to pay a lump sum amount of money to them per year. Some of the farmers signed it off. Some of them didn't. They hired the lawyers to fight for their cause. Later on, when rest of the farmers were also came to know about the synthetic indigo, they also demanded the refund of their money, for which they hired the lawyers too. Now, let's stop the story here and move to our next section, which is question answers. Students, there are few questions in front of you for which you have to write the answers. Question number 1. Why do you think Gandhi considered the Champaran episode to be a turning point in his life? Question number 2. What was the attitude of the average Indian in smaller localities towards advocate of home rule? So, this is the end of this session. We will meet again in our next session.